Welcome back to another NCUT movie review. Today we have Thanksgiving, a movie that doesn't take itself too seriously, but has some absolute atrocities throughout it that need to be explored. And Geordie and I are going to debate and get into this because we disagree on if this movie was good or bad. So stick around and let's jump into the review.
The plot for this film essentially is Scream 1.
Oh my god. Thanksgiving's at the door. John
Carver's
at
the door with Brie Larson.
Brie Larson.
She's still angry about the review last week. The plot for this film is essentially just your typical slasher film. Nothing too intricate, nothing too deep. It is just a killer has a motive to get revenge on 4, 5, 6 teens, I think, in the film. Like the teen group, like the typical two jocks, the pretty girl, the nerd, the boyfriend who's like a track star or athlete who gets injured, the creepy sort of boyfriend / guy who's obsessed with one of the main character. This film doesn't take itself too seriously, like Josh said in the opening, and you can tell that from the get-go. The opening sequence of this movie is crazy. It is just an absolute piss take of Black Friday in America and essentially how crazy people go in America and just capitalism and consumerism just taking over and turning people into savages, essentially. Like, you could probably watch that opening sequence and think that that was actual footage from Black Friday maybe last year. I definitely saw videos that were exactly like that during COVID, 100%.
100%. I only watched this film because of purely Tim Dillon. That's all I cared about. I watched his podcast, so I thought, let's watch this film that he's promoting. And I thought the film overall was mid. I hated the acting. I hated the script work. But this is what Geordie and I talk about. The film is like now a new age or new genre that has come out, this new slasher / comedy, kind of horror based. I know it's in the genre of horror. I don't think it probably applies to it. But there's now something new that I'm not for this. I like the old stuff. I was born in a golden era of movies, and now we're dealing with this shit, and it makes me so irritated. But this movie also does have some good points. Some of the good things I found in this movie was how good the information was and how good some of the scene work was of making you guess who the killer was. Now, they had a lot of different people being accused, and I got it wrong guessing who the person was. But they did a really good job of showing characters that do certain acts. So like let's say it's cooking, let's say they're sportsmen or women, let's say that they're drug dealers or whatever it is. And they will drop some type of word or adage or something that they've done into the film to make you think that that's the person being accused who's doing it. And I was like, oh God, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is this person. But that was one good thing it did do. It had a lot of information in certain scenes that were kind of subtle. And I like that a lot.
Almost like clues in a way. Like
breadcrumbing you.
Breadcrumb clues to certain aspects. Like there'd be a throwaway comment at one point in the film, and then the killer in this movie would somehow reference that throwaway comment or that throwaway attribute that one of the characters had. So it had you guessing, because when you watch these movies, I don't know about you people watching this, but me and Josh, the first thing we do in this movie when we sit down is we say, all right, who's the killer? When you get the round characters, that it has to be one of them. And this movie had you guessing pretty much all the way to, I mean, it didn't, but it did. For me, it was pretty easy to see probably about halfway through the movie who the actual killer was. But it did a pretty good job of keeping it a mystery all the way up until the big reveal right at the end. So that's always a hallmark of a good film. The writing, yes, and the acting was bad, but I think that's what these new sort of age slashers are going for. These directors and these writers know that they don't have a lot of time and attention span to get these movies out to people. Like people aren't looking for an intricate, crazy movie anymore. But this film was an interesting take, I guess, on Thanksgiving. I don't think I've seen a horror movie based on Thanksgiving yet. I mean, you've got plenty on Halloween, plenty on Christmas, plenty on every other holiday of the year. And it actually touched on a few interesting aspects related to Thanksgiving, which I thought was cool. A nice little tie-in as well. It had very funny moments of taking the mickey out of certain things in the real world, like we mentioned already with capitalism, consumerism, but also being an influencer. And it's kind of funny how they had the number one influencer, I guess you could say, or the girl who created being influencer in the world in this movie. It also had funny references to like what people are willing to do or what people will do to get famous on social media, especially things like TikTok. There's a version of TikTok on this film that showed, and it's just funny that they have that in this movie with the girl who made TikTok what it is now, who's the face of TikTok, Addison Rae, who I don't know if she was deliberately going for this vibe or not, but she can't act. And in this movie, it continues. She cannot act to save herself. But I actually don't think she was acting in this movie. I think she was being herself. I think it was just her. She just rolled up and they were like, oh, hey, do you reckon you can just sit in this booth with these 5 people and just be who you are and just not act one slither?
I don't think Addison Rae can act at all. I agree with Geordie completely. If she was trying to act here, don't stop. Go back to TikTok. This is dog shit. Don't go into cinema doing this stuff. Either take a few years of learning the craft and then going in and do it, because it wasn't actually just her. It was also other cast members as well. Yeah. Her boyfriend specifically.
Oh, dreadful. Bro,
did that guy know how to act, or was he just being such an idiot that it came across that way that he couldn't act?
But I think that
it was like both.
I think that's almost what they were going for, because the only reason why I say that is because there's a genuinely... So her boyfriend in this film is a jock, some sort of... is a footballer, NFL player, and there's a scene where he deliberately cannot throw a football, and I just think to myself... That's not what would happen in the...
Yeah.
You know, so I think deliberately they were going for this terrible acting vibe. But at some points in the film, it does pull you out of the movie because you're just like, this is so shit of acting, what the hell? But if you go into this film like you would a typical slasher film, like a Happy Death Day, those sort of movies, you know you're going to get this. They're not high-paid actors, these people. They're just... Most of the time, they're up-and-comers or guys that are trying to catch their break, like the original Scream cast. So... You take it with a grain of salt. I say you take it with a grain of salt.
This movie to me was just a copy and paste. Every other slasher film that they've had is now copied and pasted from previous to this new age shit, and I am all against it. Stop making these things, please. I'm fucking over it. And if they do bring in the money and the reviews are good and the Rotten Tomato scores are high, 80-something%. If it's IMDb at 4.9, fair enough that you're making money. But people need to understand that this movie is, if you're rating it on a normal based scale of slasher, mystery, anything like that, horror, it is shit. It's literally a new subset. It's a completely new genre that they've invented with these. It's almost spoofs without spoofing. It's weird. It's such a nuanced thing that I do not agree with it, and I just don't think I can take anything out of this film that was good. Apart from the mystery part of it. That's it. Everything else pissed me off.
For the first time here on NCut, we're gonna have a first here on NCut, and I'm gonna have to actually disagree with Josh there. I believe that the movie, for what it was worth, did really well, and I found myself... It only goes for an hour and 30 minutes, I think, so, you know, it's nice and quick. And from the start to the finish, I was like, you know, yeah, the acting's pretty subpar. The plot is your typical slasher film, but by the end of it, I was like, oh, that was an okay movie. You know, there was nothing really that I found bad about it. I thought it had really intricate and interesting takes on, like we said, things that are happening in the world at the moment, very interesting social aspects, very interesting looks at things going on around the world and how crazy we can get, I suppose. And I thought that by the end of it, I was like, I would watch that again. And, you know, yes, the acting's terrible, but I think it's meant to be, because these films just cannot be taken too seriously, people. Do not go in there thinking you're going to go see Martin Scorsese 4-hour slugfest. This is just a popcorn movie. You throw it on, you watch these different versions of people getting killed, and you just go, oh, that's funny.
If this is a popcorn film, I want my popcorn to be filled with bullets and guns, because that's where I need to go with this. This is the only good thing I'm going to take out of the film, okay? I'll leave this on a positive note. One, the killings or the murders were very unique. I thought that they were completely different to what I've seen in these other quote-unquote popcorn movies and these other copy and pasted slasher movies. I also think that the attention to detail was very interesting because it made you second guess. Those are the only two things I can take away. Everything else in this film could eat my ass. I don't like it, and I want this genre to end, please.
That's what these films are going for. That's why I say and disagree with Josh in that you don't go into these movies thinking too much. You just go into it and for what it's worth, a slasher that is a funny movie, a fun movie to put on, and in the bits where it's shocking acting or it's never slow. There's always something drawing you. Every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, someone's getting murdered, or there's a little clue or a little breadcrumb of who could be the murderer, who could not be. And that's what these movies are going for. And I think that's why they keep getting made. That's why there's such a new genre, like Josh called it, a slasher comedy, because obviously people are watching them. This movie doubled its budget in the first 2 weeks that it was out. And it was a cut and copy of Scream, essentially, just with humour. So, yeah.
I want John Carver to chop my head off, please. This is it. I'm over it. Anyway, guys, I'm going to rate this probably a 35%. That's all I'm going to give it. And that's purely for Tim Dillon. So shout out Tim Dillon. If he ever watches this review, I watch your shit all the time. Shout out. And I post this on my Instagram story as well. So
My
Fucking
review for this film.
Repost it.
Yeah, repost him. My rating for this film in this genre, I would give it like a 60%, only because it was fresh. With the killings are pretty much similar to killings you see in other films, but there was a couple ones that were different, and it kept you. The aspect of the fact that not knowing who the killer was, I really enjoyed,
I agree with that, though.
and the way that it tapped into gave you different breadcrumbs that called back to different comments or different motives that people had on each different character, or about 4 different characters. I love that. I thought that was really good. So I'd give it about a 60, which I know seems completely contrast to Josh, but this is what happens when you go see a movie. This is the thing with cinema these days. So many different ideas and different vibes to movies.
Yeah, like both of us sat there pretty much in the same chair. He sat on my lap and we watched the same
Pause.
film. We watched the same film and we both had the different outcome, which was very awesome. This is the one thing I like about cinema is that. So anyway, guys, this has been another End Cut movie review. Peace, we out.
We out.
And
Peace.
cut.